Hi there. Before we roll on with this episode of the RVE podcast, here's a quick reminder that the RV Entrepreneur Workshop is taking place on September 12th during the big RV show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. This full day of networking, education, food, and fun will be followed by a live recording of this podcast with audience participation. That evening, enjoy dinner, drinks, and live music at the popular RV Life after party. Space is filling up quickly, so get more info and tickets at therventrepreneur.com. Many thanks to our amazing partners making these events possible, including Jayco, Cool RV, Open Road Resorts, Lithionics Battery, Air Skirts, RV TV, Open Roads Fuel Card, Clear 2O, Work Camper News, and more. Visit therventrepreneur.com for complete details and sign up today before tickets are gone. And now, on with the show.
I've been very diligent about being a consummate professional and being good to my customers to ensure that they leave positive feedback on the platform. And that is the number one driver of business for me.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Welcome back to the RV Entrepreneur. I'm Jim with RV Life, and boy, do I have a successful bootstrap business story to share. My guest, Benjamin Freedland, has overcome some serious adversity to launch and grow a successful recreational vehicle transport company from the ground up and become an exclusive shipper on the uShip platform with 67 plus 5-star reviews. And he did it all in less than a year. We talk about the most important things to consider when it comes to long-distance RV deliveries, both as a driver and as a customer. I asked Ben what he attributes his success to, and it all boils down to providing exemplary customer service, plus clear communication with 100% transparency. And that shows in the personal challenges Ben shares with us and what he learned from those experiences, which helped make him the successful entrepreneur he is today. So hang on while we learn what it takes to run an RV transport business. Spoiler alert, it's about much more than getting to drive some sweet rigs. Ben knows all too well, and he explains right after this.
This summer, ensure your RV is a haven of cool and comfort. Cool RV's novel approach to staying cool significantly enhances your air conditioner's effectiveness without breaking the bank. For only $84.95 with shipping included, step into a cooler RV. Visit coolrv.com to get started. That's cool with a K, RV.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLife. Attention detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out.
Ben, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk and share with everyone what you're doing there.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. This is a business that I started a year ago, and it has been a wild ride. We are really excited to be a part of the RV community and provide a service which is really an integral part of the lifestyle, if need be.
Cool. And that service is RV delivery, and we're going to get into all that. But technically, we're the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast, so I tend to ask my guests all a couple questions first. When were you first introduced to the RV life? Was it through this business, or do you have any RVing memories?
I have an RV memory, yeah. I rented an RV and went to a music festival. I was In a previous business, which I still run part-time, I was a vendor at music festivals. And so I rented an RV and filled it with watermelons and set up a booth with 15 active duty Marines from a local Marine Corps base. And we ran a booth selling watermelons at the nation's largest country music festival in California called Stagecoach. And it was quite a fun time. It was actually one of the best memories of my life.
That's exciting. And it sounds rather entrepreneurial. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur to you?
Wow. Well, to be an entrepreneur, it means the ability to set your own hours, make your own wage, and be your own boss. But those are not things that can be done easily. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to be driven and you have to be resilient and you have to persevere through hardship. So a combination of everything I've just said, what it means to be an entrepreneur is to essentially have freedom in your own world and, be all you can be by your own doing.
Yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned a few things there that we're going to dive into in a little bit more detail. But why don't you just explain RV delivery to us? What kind of rigs are you delivering and who are the customers?
So RV delivery is the business of transporting recreational vehicles of all classes, A, B, and C, from auction houses, dealerships, and private buyers and sellers to their new owners. A lot of the time, there is a differentiation in price from one region of the country to the next. And so people reach out and say from California to Virginia because they can purchase a recreational vehicle at a less expensive rate. But there becomes an issue, and that is, how do I get my new vehicle that I've purchased for $20,000 less to California from Virginia? Do I fly out there and drive it back, or do I find someone to do it for me? That, in an essence, is what my business is about taking RVs from point A to point B at long distances to, give my clients peace of mind, but also the satisfaction of knowing that someone capable can deliver their very expensive new recreational vehicle to its new home. So recreational vehicle transport is the business of getting a RV from point A to point B. And, I basically got into this as a fluke, and it has turned into something that is way more than I thought it would be. And it is now very wildly successful. So I tapped into a niche, which I didn't even ever expect to be a part of. And now it has turned into a very solid business with its foundation in 67 five-star reviews. Our customer service is very, very important. And that's what builds our business and continues it to grow. We've had no negative reviews, and our business continues to grow based on the foundation of our positive feedback.
So let's talk about that fluke for a minute. When did you start recreationaltransport.com and why? What inspired you to do that?
I started recreationaltransport.com officially. I did a brand name change. So originally it was Open Circle Transportation, and I rebranded to Recreational Transport in March of 2024. Before that, it was Open Circle Transportation. And before that, I was just a profile of a shipping provider on uShip, on the uShip platform. And I started that in May of 2023. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I just needed extra income. So I got some contracts to move commercial vehicles from Delaware to Michigan. That was successful. And I just kept going. I just kept on getting jobs. And it's kind of funny because the first recreational vehicle I transported was in November of 2023. And the reason I clicked on the ad to bid on it was because it was a Class A vehicle. And I thought what that meant was that it was a Class A vehicle. But in reality, it was a Class A RV. I had just obtained my Class A CDL. So I thought, well, I'll just click on stuff that says Class A because I can use my new certification. Well, lo and behold, I get out to Boise, Idaho to pick up the Class A RV. And I told the guy, here's my Class A CDL. And he's like, well, you don't need that. And so I was like, what? But, as any person who drives a Class A diesel pusher will tell you, especially when there's something trailing in the back, it is very beneficial to have that Class A CDL certification. That's how I got into it. That was the fluke. That was the fluke.
So I've seen trucks pulling trailers and they've got a magnet on the side of their truck and they say RV transport and this sort of thing. Are most of these jobs personal units, like you said, buying at auction houses, or are there like fleets of new equipment getting delivered to dealerships, or is it more personal rigs?
Okay, so the majority of the RVs that we transport are personal. However, I do have a very solid relationship with a dealership in Ottumwa, Iowa, Bowling RV and Sales, and we take vehicles that they purchase at Manheim Auction in Lakeland, Florida, and Manheim Auction, or I think it's another one in Franklin, Ohio, to their dealership. We've done 14 for them, but that is essentially a personal vehicle going to a dealership from an auction house. The majority is for private clients, and when you see that sign on the side of an RV, that necessitates a DOT number and MC number, which is not necessarily a requirement for the service which we provide, although we are transitioning to get a DOT number and MC number. Those signs are required to be posted. So this is really a service. It's a service of RV transportation, and therefore you won't see us with a sign on the side of RV because it's for personal clients. And that's, a lot of the times that you see those RVs with the signs on the side, that is, coming from Elkton, Elkton, Indiana. Is that Elkhart, Indiana?
Elkhart, right.
There's tons of guys that have flatbeds and have those for-hire magnets on the side. But that's a really different animal because that's coming from the manufacturer and going to the dealership.
So what type of rigs are you driving primarily? I mean, if you mentioned a Class A rig, but what about trailers, fifth wheels? You'd have to have the truck and the hitch. What are you moving most and what's easiest?
We're moving, I think the majority of what we're moving now is Class A diesel pushers.
Okay.
We have some favorite brands. I certainly have a favorite RV that I drove. I would say that the Newmar London Air that we picked up in South Haven, Mississippi last month was unbelievable. I like to drive anything that's not a gas pusher. I prefer a diesel pusher for many reasons, primarily, the efficiency of the engine. Sometimes with permission of the client, we'll tow a trailer along the way, but, I've done every single kind of RV, I think, that is in the wheelhouse of manufacturing. I've done Tiffin, I've done Newmar, I've done Jayco, Winnebago. I've done all of them, but I do enjoy driving the Tiffins and the Newmars. Of course, there's a lot more luxury accommodations for the driver's seat, and that's really all that matters to me.
Okay.
A comfortable seat, because we're not really using the RV per se as the client will be. We're not putting the slides out and using the facilities unless we're given permission to sleep on a couch or a bed. But I'm looking for the captain's chair, and the captain's chair and the Newmar and the Tiffins are phenomenal. So
good to know. And that kind of addresses a question I had. When you're moving these long distance, usually you're not necessarily sleeping in them and using the appliances. So you must be getting accommodations along the way.
Yeah. So if we are told by the client that we can sleep in the RV, we'll sleep in the RV. We'll bring a yoga mat and a sleeping bag, and that's, we'll sleep on the floor, we'll sleep on the bed. But preferably, most of the clients would like us to stop and use, a hotel along the way. And so that is something that we need to negotiate in and of itself, because where do you park an RV at a motel? Mm-hmm. So you have to look in advance to see if there's the parking capability. You can't just pull up to a hotel with a 42-foot diesel pusher. So you need to figure out how you're going to park at a hotel. We've stayed at tons of hotels along the way, but my preference is to keep moving. So if we do have the opportunity of staying in the vehicle, we do it. But if not, we'll stay. It's really up to the client to allow us to do, either or.
So you mentioned a bidding process earlier. If you're, paying for accommodations and then there's fuel involved, all of this must kind of get negotiated out beforehand, or you're making sure it comes in under your bid so you still make some money. So what's the logistics like there? How do you work these proposals or these bids?
Well, it's very complicated, actually, because a lot of times it involves air travel. Well, all of the time it involves travel via air. So what I'm doing before I even bid on something, I look at the route. then I look at where the closest airport is. And so I'm looking at the airfare and I'm factoring in what the miles per gallon will be, if it's diesel or gas, if I'm going to stay in a hotel or not, and what the total amount for fuel will be and some of the expenses along the way. With that being said, I'll build that all into the quote so that I'm making at least $1,000 on a job. I'd like to make more, obviously, and I usually do, but I'll factor that all in. And it usually comes out to about $1.30 to $1.60 per mile. And I like to stay competitive. And part of the reason I'm able to stay competitive is that sometimes I can speak to the client in advance and say, hey, look, would you mind if I picked up this box along the way and put it in the undercarriage? If I'm working with a client and I can explain that to them with their permission, I can reduce the cost of the transportation. And that's kind of what sets me apart too, is that I can offer something a little bit discounted and compete with my fellow recreational vehicle transportation companies by being able to pick stuff up along the way, but not anything crazy that would like scratch up the vehicle, something that's packaged
Sure.
well and that can fit in the undercarriage or like on the bed or something like that. That's not something that we're doing all the time, but that's something that can make me a more competitive quote. So I'm looking at all of those different factors when I place a bid. And like I said, that is a very complex thing. I try to teach it to my wife, who helps me out with the business sometimes, and to others. It's not something you can really teach someone. So, I have a background in geography, and I've traveled to 49 of the 50 states and to 27 countries. So I'm a very proficient traveler. Essentially, I do that full time. And so all of that factors into the logistics of the bid.
That makes sense. And, regarding the whole bidding thing, you kind of already addressed writing in some air travel. That answered a question I had. Like, if you're delivering something, how do you get back? But being centralized in a certain location, I'm guessing the marketing efforts or the bids you're looking for are going to be localized, like near the client base. Or would you look at like air travel to and then back home after delivering it?
I look at that. Yes. I like to look because for whatever reason, God bestowed Minneapolis Airport to be a massive, ultra low cost carrier hub for Frontier and Spirit. And so I can find airfare to Orlando for $39 one way. And I can fly from Phoenix to Minneapolis for $50. I can fly from Los Angeles to Minneapolis or vice versa for under 100. And so
Wow.
I do look at where the pickup is, because if the pickup is somewhere where an ultra low cost carrier does not serve, or if it's too expensive, I won't bid. If it's somewhere out of Florida or near New York or Arizona or California, I can get there relatively inexpensively. And that's really one of the main factors that allows my business to thrive, because I can do round trip airfare in a lot of instances for under $180. So it doesn't matter where the vehicle is, so long as I can get to it relatively inexpensively within, reach of an Uber or a train or a Greyhound. I don't like the Greyhound. It's a very
Sure.
sketchy way to travel. I would prefer not to. I've done it a few times.
Sure.
But yes, all of those things factor into the bid and to where I look to pick up the vehicle.
So that all just comes back to working the proposal. I mean, you're looking at it, you're doing it the math, and you're seeing what it's going to cost to do this job, to get the thing delivered and get it done. But what's working best for you marketing wise? How are you getting the word out about your services?
The best marketing that I have is my reviews. Initially, I would say 95% of my bids and shipments are done through the uShip platform, uship.com. And I have 67 5-star reviews on that platform, which people can look at after they look at my quote. That's really what drives my business, is the reviews, because all of my reviews are glowing. I have reviews on Facebook as well. I have, a group on Facebook, and I've done some advertising there. But really, my marketing stems from me putting my bid in and people looking at my quote, which says, take a look at my reviews. And then they look at the reviews, and that's why they choose me, is because of the reviews that other RV owners have left, which allows the customer to feel satisfied and placate any concerns that they might have about the journey.
It's all about making those connections and telling a friend, and they tell their
Correct.
friends, and then those people come back to you. So you mentioned uShip. Is that primarily where you're spending your time finding the jobs? Or are there other platforms and apps that you're using in your daily business and marketing?
Yes. Outside of the organic, as you mentioned, there's word of mouth too. And so I would say now 30% of my business comes from customers that I have built relationships along the way. And then the 70% comes from uShip. Those are all new clients. And so that's where I drum up the majority of my business. Yes. And as of June 1st, we will be power providers on that platform, which is an accolade which is given to very few shipping providers. The requirement is to have less than 10% cancellation rate, 10 deliveries in 1 month, and no flags or issues with the site. And so we qualify for that in a couple of days, and that's a really significant milestone for us because that little icon on my profile with uShip is now going to help drum up a tremendous amount of business. And that's wherein we're going to probably have to start looking at more drivers.
Sure.
We're going to have a lot more business with that badge of honor. We're already exclusive shippers, which is another, badge, but the power provider is the one that's only given to a certain amount of people on that platform. I'm trying to build up my business outside of uShip. uShip takes a lot of fees out. They charge the client fees up front, and they take about 20% of my gross, and that's a lot. So that's why I built up my website, and I'm trying to, do efficient search engine optimization and internet advertising with the website as opposed to drumming up the majority of my business through that platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned earlier that, it's not just about driving an RV. People are entrusting you to get this thing delivered safely with no scratches. What would you say is the most important element in safely delivering an RV for a client?
I have to think about that.
Sure.
There's so many things. Just being vigilant, being a defensive driver, being aware of your surroundings. It's all about maintaining professionalism on the road. Don't let aggression get the best of you. Be defensive. Every day on the road, any commercial truck driver will tell you, and in my position as a recreational vehicle transporter, there are idiots on the road that don't understand how heavy my vehicle is or how far I need to stop. And so you deal with idiots all the time, and you just have to deal with them efficiently.
Sure.
The most important element of a safe transportation is, being aware of your surroundings and being prepared for any contingency that might come up. A flat tire, an electrical error, some alarm that goes off. You just need to be very aware so that you can allow your customer to receive that vehicle without any dings or scratches or, anything that might happen along the way. So you just have to be aware and defensive. So I think I haven't ever really thought about that, but those are very important elements.
Ever wished you could learn more about RVing from the experts? With RV Life Masterclass, you can. Gain access to a wealth of knowledge through online courses and a resource library filled with insightful guides. Whether you're a novice RVer or a seasoned traveler, there's always something new to learn. Start expanding your RV knowledge today by visiting rvlife.com.
Yeah, and it's even extra aware because it's one thing when it's your own rig and you live in it and you ding it up once in a while. But when you're delivering something for someone else and you want a good review, you want to make sure that's pristine. So let's talk about those clients for a minute. Do you have any advice for the prospective clients about these complexities? Like they may not know about all these little intricate things you just discussed. So what should those clients be looking for in a driver when they might just be thinking, I just need someone to drive my rig?
I think one of the most important elements is to find someone that has a commercial trucking background. Those are the types of people that you want to have driving your RV, especially if it's a large Class A diesel pusher. If they're the smaller Class Bs and Class Cs, that's not really necessary. But when you have a $250,000 Class A diesel pusher that's brand new, it's very important to have someone that knows how to stop with the right amount of space, that is situationally aware of their surroundings. And that kind of driver comes with the certification of Class A commercial driver's license. We go to school, we learn how to back up properly. Although there's not always a trailer on the back, it's very important to have that background if there is. And so I would encourage any prospective client to take a look at and see if there is a commercial driver. I am a commercial driver, and that's, I think, one of the foundations of what allows my company to thrive. And, if they want to look a little bit deeper into the record of the driver, that's something that's available. So, every commercial driver has a record, and anybody can access that. So, I haven't had any dings on my commercial driving history as long as I've had it. I think I've had one infraction in 15 years on my personal driver's license for driving the wrong way down a one-way street in a snowstorm. And it's very important to look at that. So there is a degree of professionalism that comes with having that certification. And I think that's a very important element when looking to have your RV transported at long distances.
So do you have a history in trucking, or just the certifications that you've gotten since you got into the business?
Yeah, I have a background in commercial trucking. That's where I sort of cut my teeth in the world of transportation. I started off as a bulk milk hauler in a tanker truck in central Minnesota's Stearns County, picking up raw milk at dairy farms down dirt roads, with 50, 60,000 pounds of sloshing milk in a tank, and in the most inhospitable conditions that a Minnesota winter can throw at you. There is no room for error when picking up milk. You cannot say, "Oh, it's too cold today," or it's a whiteout blizzard. That doesn't matter. So that's my background, is basically complex trucking scenarios. Driving a milk truck with 60,000 pounds of sloshing milk down a dirt road that's unpaved and unplowed. And that gave me my PhD in trucking.
Well, it would real quick. You're going to be maneuvering around those farms, and because if you don't offload that milk, they're going to find someone else because they got to keep milking. What advice do you have for others that might be hoping to get into this? Do you look for drivers, and or what would you say to people who want to start something like this?
I would tell people that, while this is outwardly glamorous, that there's many instances that it is not glamorous. And to do your research, there's a lot that goes into this. So my advice to someone would be, do you want to work 7 days a week and, drive 14 hours a day and constantly participate and engage in social media and marketing efforts in order to drum up the type of business that, is effective to keep moving forward? If you're into that, this is an interesting industry to get into, and there's plenty of space for competition. But just with like any other business, it is not easy. You're married to your job and you're constantly on your phone, except when you're driving. And good luck.
Sure.
to anyone that wants to get into business in general and be an entrepreneur, more power to them. But do your homework and make sure that you know what you're getting into. Don't get overwhelmed with the amount of money that you're bringing in, your gross. Make sure that you stay in the black. It's very easy to get behind and dip into the red. So make sure that you are staying net positive with your revenue, and that you are able to sustain this. This is my full-time job now. I used to be the commercial truck driver that I spoke about, but now I'm doing this full-time, and it requires so much, from incorporating the business to accounting, having someone work for me, airfare, lodging, fuel. There's just constant work. And so I applaud anyone that wants to get into this, but if you want to, get ready for a hell of a ride, because it's not just the glamorous nature of driving nice luxury RV. That's the fun part.
Sure.
But that's a very small amount of what I do. There's so much else that goes on.
I often refer to it as juggling cats. I mean, that's the entrepreneurial lifestyle. You're always trying to make things work without damaging too much. You mentioned glamorous there a couple of times. I want to hear some examples. You've talked about, traveling in some nice fancy rigs, but has there been any ugly scenarios or near misses?
Oh my gosh.
What was not, give me an example of something that's not so glamorous about one of these trips.
We picked up a 2009 Bluebird Wander Lodge. I think that's what it's called, Wander Lodge. Mm-hmm. And it was owned by the owner of Stormtroopers, which is a company that provides a service for rock stars and musicians in Prevost rock star buses, tour buses. This guy owned the 2009 Bluebird Wander Lodge, and there was a client on the East Coast that purchased this guy's basically party bus
Sure.
with a shower and no bed and just a bunch of couches and a bunch of fancy glass canters. And it looked pretty cool from the outward. When we picked it up, it was like on life support with a generator. And we got it about 15 miles outside the lot. And the speedometer, tachometer, and all of the gauges started gyrating in circles.
Oh, no.
Like we were going 50 miles an hour, but the speedometer was like going around in circles. Oh, so many different alarms were going off. Everything in me told me to pull over and just kill this job, but we just kept going. At one point, I put a towel over all of the gauges and just looked at the speed on my phone. The windshield wipers didn't work. At the end, so many things went wrong. It was just a freaking nightmare. At the
But
end,
you made it.
We made it. Yeah, but it had to stop in Altoona, Iowa to get some alternator belt fixed, which took a month. And then I picked it up again. And then the front suspension went out. We were bumping around. I was sore for like 3 days after that. I went to the chiropractor like 3 times in a week, got a professional massage, but I made it.
So this can get exciting.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to call it.
Well, that's one word for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was physically and mentally exhausting, that particular trip. I mean, I have some footage that is outrageous of us bumping around in this RV. And we were just very excited at the end to be done with that, and a little disappointed that, the customer was, a lot of times we work on tips. We have a lot of wealthy customers and they give us a tip. We took this thing all the way across the country. He told it was going to be 7 miles a gallon. It was like 3.9 miles to the gallon. There was just so many things that didn't work. I was fully expecting this guy to be like, look, man, we're really sorry. Here's $500. But he just sort of like took the keys and I never talked to him again.
Wow.
So it was weird, but this is the nature of the business.
The nature of the business. Like I said, I'm sure you've seen lots of those challenges. So how have you managed to build your own business from the ground up like this in just 1 year?
Reviews. That's the one answer, guy. I've been very diligent about being a consummate professional and being good to my customers to ensure that they leave positive feedback on the platform. And that is the number one driver of business for me. I can bid competitively, but when people look at those reviews, that's what gets me my business. Memorial Day weekend was slow because everybody has their RVs already where they want it. But that was the first week in maybe 6 months where I didn't get any bookings. But since Memorial Day, so it's Thursday today, we've had 3 bookings basically in 72 hours. And that's all due to the reviews. And there's a lot to building a business. We've created a niche that is not really exploited by many others. There are a few competitors on the uShip platform, but this is something that's not really done by very many people, and it's certainly not advertised by many people. This is something that a lot of dealerships have their own drivers for, but we build the business with our reviews, and that's how we continue to grow.
So let's talk about how you get them. You mentioned, being professional, but tell me a bit more. On your website, you say, at the heart of our operations lies a commitment to providing exemplary customer service. What does exemplary customer service look like in this industry? How are you going the extra mile?
Communication is the one answer that I will say. People that purchase $200,000, $300,000 recreational vehicles, they want to know where you are. So I send personal videos and I make it personal. Like I'm driving through Louisiana and I'm stopping at a Cajun restaurant. I'll tell them this is where we are. This is where the vehicle is parked. There's, it's lit. There's cameras. I'm going in and I'm getting some Cajun food, or I'm going to go into the hotel. I've got a view of the RV from my window. I think it's very important to communicate with the client and let them know where you are. And I also offer tracking too, so that they can see exactly where I am. There are some people in this industry that will deviate from the most direct path and will double dip and use the space inside the RV without permission. That's not anything that we're doing. We're always asking and we're always communicating, and we are always, picking up when the customer calls, and we're sort of like placating any of their concerns, because it is a very concerning endeavor to enlist someone that you've never met before based solely off of reviews on an internet site and having them drive a $250,000 vehicle down the road. Anyways, communication is key. That's the most important element in maintaining the integrity of our customer service.
I would totally agree. Communication is key in any industry, and the fact that you're being open and transparent about these things, it's definitely a big plus. And I saw another thing on your website too. You mentioned your proactive approach to problem solving and your ability to adapt to evolving circumstances. So what exactly are some of those? You mentioned some, but the problems you encounter, but more importantly, what's a proactive approach? I mean, how do you foresee these things that might happen and be prepared for them?
That was sort of like a nice way of saying when the shit hits the fan, what do you do? Do you have a responsible enough person to troubleshoot and get the job done? Let's say your RV, blows a tire or alternator belt burns off and the lights start dimming because the alternator is not charging the battery properly. It's important to have someone know what's happening so that they don't create more of an issue that will cost them tens of thousands of dollars. So my proactive approach is to essentially just watch the gauges and ensure that I do my pre-trip inspection and my post-trip inspection every day and on every drive before I start and after I end, and to essentially just stay on my toes and be ready for any contingency that might happen. And there are tons of them. I had a semi truck blow a tire out on I-20 in Texas, and it hit the vehicle that I was driving, and the semi truck kept on going. It hit the vehicle that I was driving, and then it went underneath the vehicle and then spat out the end and hit another vehicle, which hit me, which also kept going. I pulled over. I called the police. The state troopers came out. I was in the middle of nowhere, but I maintained a level head and I got a police report. I filed an insurance claim and I got the vehicle to where it needed to go. And I was able to be proactive about something that would otherwise be very stressful for really anybody else. But it's really just part of the job to be able to handle a situation like that. And so that's sort of what I mean by saying that. I have a marketing background, so I use some fancy words there. But really the root of what I'm trying to say is be prepared for any contingency. I will just give you another example. I was in Amarillo, Texas, and for whatever reason, the trailer that I was towing, the ball fell off in the middle of a bridge in downtown Amarillo. And so I had to pull over, and it was a very bad situation.
Sure.
But instead of freaking out, I got over in the emergency lane, which was not very big. I found an orange cone. I put it in the back. I called the police. I told them that I was leaving to go pick up a new hitch, which is what I did. I went to an AutoZone. Within 25 minutes, I was hauling that trailer away. That was a situation where probably other people would have called a tow truck.
Right.
Just completely freaked out and just lost all hope. But that was my opportunity to shine. And that was when I did what I did, which was get a new ball, install it. And, the police were there sort of like guarding the trailer so nobody hit it. And I was on my way. And that's how you stay on your toes in this industry.
And you said something there that I was exactly thinking, and it was be prepared. I mean, you just got to be prepared for these things, not knowing what those things are. And we've talked a lot about the business challenges. Did you care to share any of the adversities that you've personally overcome in your life to get where you are today?
Absolutely. So I have a little bit of an interesting background. I spent 7 years in federal prison due to a nonviolent marijuana charge, federal marijuana drug conspiracy. I was sentenced to 84 months in October of 2015, and I spent 77 months in federal prison, and 31 of those months I spent in solitary confinement, and I spent that at 6 different prisons in 8 different states. So I have a background of perseverance through hardship, and those experiences, especially solitary confinement of over 2.5 years, helped build me into a man that is mentally, spiritually, and physically stronger than many others because I had that experience. But it helped me build myself into a driven man. When I got out of prison on February 4th, 2022, I stepped out of Federal Correctional Institution Mariana with nothing to my name. I had a bag of books and I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I was driven and I knew that I would be successful. Within a few months, I had a job. A few months after that, I had a condo and my family helped me purchase that. I got my CDL. I got some pretty complicated and high-paying jobs in the commercial trucking industry. And I bought my home 13 months post-release, which I consequently will be paying off 29 years early in about 2 months. I got married. I got a German Shepherd puppy. I started my business, and I have a baby on the way. And it's really crazy to think that I've been able to do that. But because of my adversity in incarceration, irrespective of why I was there, I personally believe that 7 years is too long for a nonviolent marijuana crime. Be that as it may, I did spend the time in prison, and that built me into a very strong man because prison is not a friendly place. And that does not relate to me being a bad person. I have many tattoos on my body, and I have kind of an interesting facade, but underneath, I'm very driven, and all of those experiences helped me get to where I am today. That's not a very common theme for people that exit prison, but for the people that actually use prison to rehabilitate themselves and their minds, you can encounter some very successful ex-cons that are able to do this kind of thing. I do have a background as an entrepreneur, prior to my incarceration, so that certainly helped. But being able to overcome such difficult hardships, being in solitary confinement as long as I was, and doing as much time as I did away from my family, away from my loved ones, it helped me to become the man that I am today. And I'm very grateful for my time in prison because it did those things.
I just want to say congratulations for so many things there. I can only see how a lot of that time and a lot of that time spent alone in those inhospitable conditions prepare you to be prepared for anything life is going to throw you in the future. So I wish you the best of the luck going forward. You're clearly doing something right. If perchance you might be looking for drivers, or if people are looking for someone to drive their rigs, where are they going to find out about you?
Well, I have a website, recreationaltransport.com, and my email is ben@recreationaltransport.com. And you can reach me 24/7, 365 on my cell phone, which is 310-775-1472. I'll engage you online on social media. Any way you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to talk to you, even if it's just about something that I might be able to help you with. If you're going to travel out to go get your RV, I've done this so many times now that I'd love to, offer, sort of just a free consultation to anyone that might be interested in the service, but also anyone that's trying to do it on their own. So I'm very, open to helping people if they're a client or if they're just looking for some information about how to move an RV across the country.
That's awesome. I really appreciate what you're doing there. And I was impressed when I went to your website and I got a little pop-up that said, call me. And that comes back to the communication and the transparency. I mean, it sounds like you will pick up the phone and talk to someone, and that's going to build that relationship. So we hope to get the word out there for you and wish you the best going forward. Thanks again for joining me, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's quite a story. Ben is testament to the triumphs we can all achieve regardless of our past experiences. If anything, adversity and hardship can teach us to be prepared for anything, in business and in life. My mother used to tell me, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's sound advice, and I think Ben would agree. But to make sure that best part comes true, we gotta follow his advice regarding clear communication, transparency, and providing the absolute best customer service. Because as Ben also knows, it's those customers who will provide the best marketing for you when they leave a positive review or refer your services. What challenges have you overcome in life? And how has that translated to the way you operate your business? Let us know in the RVE community group on Facebook or reach out at therventrepreneur.com/contact. And maybe we'll share your story with the world. Together, we can all help each other be the best we can possibly be.
This summer, ensure your RV is a haven of cool and comfort. Cool RV's novel approach to staying cool significantly enhances your air conditioner's effectiveness without breaking the bank. For only $84.95 with shipping included, step into a cooler RV. Visit coolrv.com to get started. That's cool with a K, RV.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLife. Attention detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out.